207. The Nature of Freedom. Chalcedon Position Paper number 178, August 1994. Freedom has been variously defined in history. All too often it has meant sexual license, and it has been accompanied by political tyranny. One writer in 1982 held that a belief in Acts chapter 4 verse 12 is racism and totalitarianism. He also held that Christian schools are likewise racist and totalitarian. Obviously, he had his own realm of private meanings. It will be wise, therefore, to follow the dictionary and define liberty in terms of common usage. The terms liberty and freedom are used interchangeably, and we will examine both words. Freedom is defined as the quality or state of free action and a political right. Liberty is the quality or state of being free from arbitrary or despotic control, the power of choice, and an immunity. Note that these definitions imply limits. By clear implication, there are civil, and one can add, religious restrictions on freedom. No one has the right to kill or steal at will. Freedom is under law. At the same time, there is a moral element. A drug addict is not a free man. He is a slave to drugs and is unable to alter a suicidal course until some outside control intervenes. The world of antiquity outside of Israel was unfree. The myth of Greek and Roman freedom is one that obscures a totalitarian civil order, human sacrifices, a radical restriction of choice, and a total control over the citizenry. Every area of life and thought was under the state, and the life of the state took precedence over the life of the people. The only exception to this in antiquity was Israel. There was no totalitarian state. In fact, only a minimal civil order existed. Its law was God's law, and all men had a duty to enforce it. Instead of power being concentrated in the state or in the, quote, church, end quote, it was severely restricted. The civil order had only a small tax permitted to it, the same for all males aged 20 and older. Exodus chapter 30, verses 11 to 16. It was called atonement or covering money for protection. By being limited in its income, the state was limited in its power. The quote-unquote temple, or the priests and their work, was similarly limited because a tithe was paid to the Levites, who then give a tithe of the tithe to the priests. Numbers chapter 18, verses 25 and 26. Again, this was a limitation on priestly power. Add to this the fact that no land tax existed, because the earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. Psalm 24, verse 1. And you begin to understand the freedom under God of Hebrew society. This pattern has been adopted at times in Christian history, as in the colonial era, and only since World War I have we seen the destruction of its remaining traces in the United States. The early church, by insisting on freedom from state controls, promoted this same doctrine of freedom. Pope Gelasius I, AD 492 to 496, formulated it clearly in a declaration to the emperor. Much later, Calvinists expanded the doctrine by their insistence on sphere sovereignty, or sphere laws. This faith declares that the various spheres of life are directly under God, and no sphere can claim dominion over all the others. In our time, those who seek to deny freedom to the church or to Christian schools, homeschools, economic activities, farming, and more are really totalitarians. It is one thing to deal with criminal activities, another for the state to regulate and control all of life. The first is justice. The second is dictatorship. Freedom is largely gone in our time, and license prevails, an ancient companion of tyrannies. The state has become a god walking on earth, and its slaves see their status as a higher freedom. The totalitarian believes that the state should regulate and control every area of life and thought, and all institutions and peoples. The totalitarian believes in man-made laws and the prior right of the state in all things. Private property has become state property, which we can retain by payment of a tax. The story of the subversion of property and the state's entrance into this sphere was ably told by Professor Jonathan R.T. Hughes in Social Control in the Colonial Economy, 1976, and The Governmental Habit, 1977. Property is not truly ours if we must pay a property tax, an inheritance tax, or any other form of tax to retain it. Property is then the possession of the taxing agent, the state, which can dispossess us for failure to pay our rental fees, taxes. The premise of the tithe is that the earth is the Lord's, and the tithe is his tax. Failure to tithe can lead to dispossession by the great landlord in his ordained time. When men deny the Lord, they then have only the immediate realm and power, and the state then becomes their lord and master. There is then no law over the state, nor a court over all human courts. Men and states need no encouragement to tyranny because they represent the fall, man's original sin in action, his will to be his own God and his own source of law. Genesis chapter 3, verse 5. We must say that the natural law of men and nations is sin and tyranny. Men seek freedom from God in order to play God over one another. The biblical position is simply this: freedom is a moral and a theological fact. If the Son therefore shall make you free, ye shall be free indeed. John chapter 8, verse 36. Immoral men and ungodly societies cannot be free because they have denied the very premise of freedom. Freedom is more than an arrangement of laws. It is a moral aspect of the life of man. Recently, a few thousand San Franciscans, including the mayor and chief of police, met at a major church to discuss the crime problem. 2 children had been murdered recently. Some 5,000 acts of violence, said one speaker, had occurred on city buses. Solutions included more police, more education, more counsellors, and so on. Everything except the necessary moral training. Products of Christian schools are law-abiding. Too many of the state school students are lawless at an early age, sometimes viciously so. Can we have moral and disciplined children without a religious foundation? George Washington, in his farewell address, warned against expecting a moral society on ungodly foundations. The biblical doctrine of freedom cannot be understood apart from Leviticus chapter 25, verse 10. And ye shall hallow the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you, and ye shall return every man unto his possession, and ye shall return every man unto his family. There are several important facets to this proclamation. First, it is God-ordained. It is the royal edict of the great king. The American hymn, My Country, 'Tis of Thee, in its last stanza, echoes the Jubilee Declaration. Our Father's God, to Thee, Author of liberty, to Thee we sing. Long may our land be bright, with freedom's holy light. Protect us by Thy might, great God, our King. Amen. God is the author of liberty. and true freedom is a holy light given to us by our great God, our King. God, as King over Israel, was the author of Israel's liberty and of all liberty. Second, the Jubilee proclamation freed men from their bondage, from debt, and from all oppression. The Hebrew word for liberty or freedom implies release from slavery. God is our great next of kin, our Redeemer. This is a glorious and liberating fact. Redeemer, the Jubilee proclamation is on America's Liberty Bell. Third, the Jubilee command is, "And ye shall return every man unto his possession," that is, to his land, his farm, or his ranch. Freedom in the Bible is not only theological, but it is also land-based, property-oriented. This is why there was no land tax on property. The absence of such a tax marked the colonial era, and in many states was absent until the latter half of the 19th century. Fourth, the Jubilee stressed the family. "And ye shall return every man unto his family." The biblical doctrine of freedom is not anarchistic. It does not mean a separation from responsibilities, but a liberty in the context of a mature assumption of duties whereby a man establishes God's order in his life and in the world around him. Because we have failed to recognize the moral limits of freedom, we are losing our liberties. Because our courts fail to recognize these moral limits, we are seeing the judiciary destroy freedom. Freedom is a moral and a theological fact. Where the state plays God, freedom disappears and tyranny triumphs. Our freedom is disappearing. It will not return without a renewal of a biblical faith.